Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our session. My name is Danielle Anderson. I'm a work-based learning consultant at Liverpool John Moores University.
And I'm Wendy Johnston. I'm a senior lecturer in nutrition and sport nutrition.
So what we're going to do this afternoon is take you through something that we did within the last academic year as a pilot. So this was in October 2022. And we've taken it, so this was a pilot within the nutrition programme, and this is our journey and what we found and where we're at now. So hello, is it me you're looking for? Preparing our students for networking through assessed work-based learning. So just to put this into a little bit more context in relation to assessed work-based learning.
So sorry, stopped.
That must be, it's a test day. So yeah, just to put this into a bit more context in terms of what we mean by work-based learning from the Liverpool John Moores University perspective and assessing something like networking in the curriculum. We've set ourselves quite an ambitious challenge of embedding some form of experiential learning into all of our undergraduate programmes. And in the past, that's been seen as placements, but we're now expanding that into projects and also portfolio development. So much of what we're about to talk about is linked to networking and bringing those experiences into the curriculum in relation to portfolio development. So we found this conceptual model, which actually, when this was, as you know, anything conceptual, you've got to take that into the real world. It's a bit like learning to ride a bike. And what we found here was that there was found a link between networking behaviours and future opportunities. So we want our students to engage in networking, and we find that if we bring it into the curriculum, they're more likely to engage in that and see the purpose of that and the impact that that can have.
So just to give you a little bit of a context, as Danielle said, you know, we're very aware that our students need to develop professional skills and networking skills. And what we wanted to do is to give them an opportunity to share ideas and opportunities, to create connections, to build their confidence. We were coming out of COVID, so we wanted to be able to build students' confidence with each other and with external providers and with us as their teaching team. It's been proven that networking does have an impact beyond the curriculum, and we know from our experiences that it can enhance future job prospects. I said earlier that I teach cross nutrition and sport nutrition, and as a team we work towards providing an excellent student experience both within and beyond the curriculum, to make sure that our graduates do become employed, and to make sure that our module is as engaging and as innovative as possible. So what did we do? We worked as an academic team in collaboration with Student Futures, which is Danielle's team, and we designed a different form of experiential learning. So we designed a bespoke networking event, which we ran as a pilot. We agreed with our school that it would run as a pilot, and we ran it as an introduction to our work-related learning module. So our module runs as a 2-day bumper to begin with, and we embedded the networking event into the bumper. So on day one, we prepared our students. So we prepared them for the module, we prepared them for what the networking event was going to be. We talked to them about how to behave professionally, and we did some team building with them. And then on day two, we actually ran the networking event. And what we did was we brought in external providers, so a range of people, so people from food companies, dietitians, people who work in the community, a whole range of different external providers, along with key LJMU student services. And we brought them all together in one social space, and we offered a safe space really for our students to start to be able to network. So why did we do it? We already offer authentic work placements for our students. They do 20 days of work-based learning, but we wanted them to be able to go out, to be more professional, to be more confident, to be able to actually get more from that authentic experience. We also wanted to continue to thread our professional practice skills throughout the programme. We talk about it as this golden thread, which starts at level 4 and finishes at level 6. And the students do 3 distinct modules, one at 4, one at 5, and their work-based learning at level 6. So the networking event, and as being part of the curriculum, enabled us to continue to have this thread of professional practice throughout. We also wanted to make sure that we're really efficient with time and use of LJMU services. We've got a lot of our staff who want those services at that time of year. So by bringing our LJMU services into one room for a 2-hour period meant that our students were engaging with all of them at the same time. So it was a real sort of focused hit of time. The students had just come back from their summer break. You know what it's like when students first come back, they're always very chatty with each other. It's quite difficult to get them to settle down into lectures. So we decided that this would be a really interactive introduction. It would enable that chatter, it would enable them to get together. It would enable them to actually start to learn again at the start of the academic year. We also wanted to add a different dimension to the assessment for the module. So how we did it, we wanted to make sure that our students attended it. It was a mandatory part of their module and part of the curriculum. So we embedded assessment as part of the networking event. The students were advised that the attendance was mandatory, and we linked a proportion of their mark to their portfolio. So they were given a questionnaire with questions on it. There was 25 questions on it, but they weren't actually given that until the morning of the networking event, and they were given it as a paper copy. And I did that deliberately. That was so they couldn't see the questions beforehand. And they couldn't just decide to answer the questions online without attending. And then to be able to find the answers to those questions, the students had to then go and talk to each person that was in that room. So all of our LJMU services, all of our external providers, they had to talk to all of them to be able to answer those questions. And then that went into their portfolio. There was a mark attached to that. Feedback, was that me or you? Me. So feedback to students or feedback from our students. We set up a JISC online survey for both external providers and our students. And you can see here that the students really, really enjoyed it. They thought it was a great way of getting them to talk to people they hadn't spoken to before. They met some great people. It motivated them to network. A lot of them said their confidence was really built. And many of our students actually asked, could they have this at lower levels? So could they have it at level 5 and possibly level 4 as well? And they really found it beneficial to talk to people who were in the relevant industries that hopefully they were going to do their work placements with, but also that they would work within.
So when we sought feedback from our internal and external stakeholders, so our colleagues across other professional services departments and the employees that attended, what we found was, particularly from an internal perspective, is that our colleagues from, say, for example, Startup and Enterprise and Money Advice Team really valued the opportunity to network with students, and the students were really well prepared in terms of the questions to ask them, and they could impart a lot of knowledge then and give them the support that they needed. From the employer perspective as well, the employers felt like everything had been thought of, and they really did enjoy attending the event, felt it was very well run, and there was additional feedback that we got as well in relation to how prepared the students were. So that preparation beforehand and the students going in ready and knowing sort of how to approach the networking event, that really did help. Just some in terms of the data, so this quantitative feedback that we got, as you can see there, a lot of the stakeholders, there was high satisfaction rate in terms of running this in curriculum, and the students attending, and also how they interacted at the event. The students as well, again, there was strongly agreed that this was a beneficial event for them. As you can see there, seems to be high levels of satisfaction across the board. So we were really pleased with what we'd found here as part of the pilot. So again, Wendy mentioned earlier around the impact beyond the curriculum. So we'll take you through some additional case studies in a moment, but we did find that students were securing jobs through their networks that they've been building, and that we could also secure additional placements for students. That expansion of networks that led to, that we hope would lead to good graduate outcomes in terms of high skilled employment. And then again here, one of the employers that attended who'd previously been a placement provider actually expanded the opportunities because they got to meet the students. So this is a case study from one of our students, Hebe. So what I won't do is I won't go through every question and every answer because I know that the slides are available, but what was really interesting to see is that that Hebe had mentioned building of confidence, particularly in relation to networking with professionals, and that networking was a key thread that came through this in terms of being able to practice that. That it definitely helped them make some contacts. They really enjoyed the seminar prior to the event, so that preparation was key for Hebe, and that they would encourage other students to go in with questions you've already prepared. So this preparation we saw was quite key. There seemed to be a bit of a common thread that was coming through around the students appreciating the fact that they've been prepared.
We have some fantastic students and they're always more than happy to give us feedback on the things that we do with them. So we had two other students, Jack and Ben, who both gave us some fantastic feedback. And again, I'm not going to read it out because the slides are available, but you can see there that Jack in particular thought it was a really valuable opportunity for him to engage with different companies. And most importantly, that we're operating within the nutrition industry. So it was the field that Jack was going to go into. So it directly linked with this programme. He found, or he thought that it was pivotal in guiding him towards a placement that was aligned with his interests. So it gave him the opportunity to talk to people who were doing the job that he was hoping to go into and to get that first-hand experience. He firmly believed that networking events gave him a unique vantage point to explore available opportunities to enhance his skills and to bolster his confidence. And Jack's confidence really did build as part of being part of this networking event. Ben was a real success story. One of our external stakeholders that attended the event was Summit Foods, and both Ben and Jack networked with Simon from Summit Foods. I had a really detailed conversation with him. Then they both did their placements with Summit Foods at different times. So they did two separate 4-week blocks with Summit Foods. ABP were also part of our event, part of our networking event. And Ben then went on to actually secure a graduate role with ABP. So for Ben, he networked with two of those stakeholders. One gave him a placement opportunity and one he's enabled a graduate role. And that's because he was a known quantity. So a real success story there.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Summit Foods, Simon at Summit Foods was more than happy to provide us with a quote. He filled in all of our questionnaires. And you can see here, he said it was a great forum to speak directly with students in our area about industry roles that they had available. He was able to see how our qualifications meet their needs. He was able to almost decide which students would suit their company for placements and for jobs moving forwards. And Simon was a real success story for us because in years gone by, Simon has very kindly taken one student for us on placement. And anybody who has to secure placements will realise that just getting one placement in a company is a real achievement. But Simon this year actually took 3 of our students, and that was a direct result of working with them as part of the networking event. And again, those students being a known quantity, they weren't just a name, they were a face, they were a person. So to summarise the networking event, we found that linking the assessment for the module with the event really did encourage engagement from the students. It made them take a greater responsibility for their learning. They understood the importance of that event. They understood how it fitted with the progression of that module and how it would lead into their placement. It has provided insight into graduate employment opportunities for all of the students in that cohort. It's actually provided graduate opportunities as well for some of our students. Our pilot, because Danielle and I ran this as a pilot, was considered successful, and our School of Sports Science has now adopted it as good practice, and they will run further events, further networking events based on our model moving forwards. Danielle and I had great fun actually running the networking event, working with the students and seeing the success of the students, and never being two people to stand still or to sit still. We're constantly thinking of what next. We've done the pilot, we know it works. So moving forwards, we've got more exciting plans in the pipeline, and we're currently discussing that as part of this year's bumper, we're going to be running a hackathon with our students. So maybe watch this space. You never know, this time next year, we might be feeding back to you about our hackathon with our students. So that's given you an overview really of how we embedded a networking event into a module as part of our curriculum for our level 6 students. I hope we've explained how it worked, and I hope that we've possibly encouraged you to have a go with it. As I said, it really was great fun. It was hard work, but it was great fun to run. We're more than happy to take any questions verbally or questions in the chat. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation. And Laurie, thank you very much for chairing.
Thank you. Thank you. Really interesting. About 4 minutes for questions.
Louise, have you got your hand up?
Hi, yes.
Hi.
Great talk, thank you. It was interesting that you had the preparation session before the networking event. Was there any kind of hesitancy within any of the students if they were a bit more of the quieter students and things like that, even though they'd had the preparatory event? And I was just wondering how that was kind of managed within the students. I know that there's the assessment element and things like that, but sometimes that can, just wondered, student anxieties and things like that. Was there anything like that that was kind of signposted at all?
It was signposted, and we knew that within our student group we had very vocal students, we had very quiet students, and we had students who would run a mile at the thought of having to talk to somebody they didn't know. So we approached it as we had a very big room, which was a really good social space. We had lots of people milling around. We had our academic team popping in and out throughout the 2-hour period, so there was familiar faces. I was there throughout, as was Danielle. We had we'd put on refreshments, so we made it more of an event. So there was bits and pieces for them to dip in and out of. If we saw a student who was looking uncomfortable, we would maybe take them over and introduce them to somebody, and sort of give them their name and make that introduction for them. We had seating for students, so they didn't have to stand up. They were sat down talking to other people who were sat down. We had little rooms, we had a little room outside where they could go outside to have a little break. So we did try and cover every base, because we're very aware that some students do not like talking to people that they don't know. So I think we made it quite a comfortable experience. The volume in the room was lovely. It was real chatty and lots of smiles, and because our external providers are just so lovely, they brought in loads of freebies. So the students were, even if they weren't discussing networking with a provider, they were discussing what they'd got free from somebody. So it was a real social experience. So I think we covered it. I hope we did.
That sounds great. A really supportive initiative there. Thanks.
Can I just ask, how long did it take you to develop the relationships with the external groups?
It's taken many, many years. I've been doing work-related learning now for 20 years. Dan, how long have you been doing it?
Well, Liverpool John Moores 7 years. But prior to that, I've sort of done work around apprenticeships and worked with other, like with employees like National Health Service and things like that. So it's been a long time, different experience. So I think the other aspect of support that we've got through John Moores is through employee engagement as well. So we actively try and engage employers and encourage them to, be included in curriculum. And Wendy's one of those academics as well that through her own networks and proactivity retains the relationships too. So we're quite fortunate in terms of how we work together. It's really complementary.
And I think as well, our placement providers, we work on a model that it's a two-way street. So if they're providing a placement for a student or they're coming in for 2 hours for us, we will always look at what we can do for them. And I think that's built our relationships, and it's like anything, good news spreads, doesn't it? So if we've got a good relationship with the placement provider, because the food industry is so vast, they're more likely to tell somebody else who will then come back to us and say, could we actually take a placement student? So really it's just having good communication with them and listening to what they want and trying to match students to what they need. And preparing the students, the preparation, as Louise said, the preparation for us the day before the networking event was crucial to prepare them for that networking event. And both the students and the placement providers were just brilliant on that day.
I'd say as well, actively using our alumni network.
Absolutely.
Too. So the alumni network is, it's a really good sort of connecting to our previous students and then connecting into industry and employers. So we look to see how we can collaborate with other teams across the university as well to be able to do that. And then again, in terms of giving things back, that's what Wendy mentioned, the hackathon. So that's where organisations will bring challenges that we can bring students in under a consultancy type experience as well, where they'll work on the challenges that some of the organisations are facing and look at solutions to those for them in curriculum.